This one is Rob's before and after, and he was alive by a 13-year-old boy who and then threw fire at him. On the 28th day of June, 1998, Robin was 8 years old, and he had come out of your house towards a little friend's house, who lived next door, to deliver the invitation to the pajama party he was going to do. Rob was walking through the woods that was near his house when a neighbor named Don Collins, who was 13 years old, passed him and started the boy. He pulled the little boy into the woods, tied him to a tree with a fishing line, and started playing with all over his body. He shot the boy's body and ran out of the scene. Right after the fire started to spread through the fishing line broke, and Rob managed to run towards his house with exactly on fire. At any given time, he wasn't seeing anything else, and he started to curl up on the floor. It made me turn it off. In the meantime, he lost consciousness, and his mother, that I was finding that delay very strange, left to look for his son with the help of a neighbor. And he was very close to the house. Then she found her son in a terrible state, completely burned, full offs on the body, and passed out right. Almost no further ahead, she would give an interview talking about that day, how terrifying it was to find her son in that state. She said his hair was burned to the ground, that the foot was taken off from the had even hung in some places. Robin was quickly taken to the hospital, and after this affair that happened to him, he had about 200 surgeries, and still stayed for a while in a rehabilitation center for people who have suffered burns. But that time Rob was in the hospital. As soon as it happened, he couldn't even speak, because it got blacked out, practically in a coma. Only the police received an anonymous recording of someone saying you knew something that this gift Collins, the neighbor, had done. So 5 days after committing that crime, the gift was sent for 6 weeks to stay in the youth training center. Only 6 weeks later he was released, because he had no concrete proof nor what had actually happened. And the police said he was very young, that he wouldn't have the courage to do something like that. After everything that happened with Robbie, he started going out on the street. He gave some interviews saying that everything was in the past, that who did that to him. Finally, I was forgiven. That was past, that he wanted to overcome, and that he was happy at that Only moment. Rob doesn't. Lived a lot of people. The fire caused irreparable damage to your organs, and he also had rare cancer. Then in 2011, 13 years after what actually happened to him, he gave a little interview, actually talked about that subject, about the crime they had committed against him. And this happened 17 days before his death. He said that the gift, his neighbor, had done that really. Rob said that Don Coles, the neighbor, had it dry 2 weeks before that crime he committed against him, and he had done it as a way to silence Rob, because he was very afraid of being discovered by the police and arrested. Good, like I told you, Rob died at 2011, and Don Collins, that this with him, was arrested and tried at only 2015. He was sentenced to 40 years in prison, and which also helped a lot in this case. For him to be arrested were new witnesses who went to speak, who were also by him in childhood or years ago, around the same time that happened to Rob. At trial, only what the gift said was that his uncle was also with him when he committed that crime. But I didn't have any evidence against his uncle, and there was no one else talking about his uncle, so the only one who was arrested was himself.